He loved to be the center of attention. Of course, it was easy for me because I was always the behind the scenes kind of person. So I would like, hey, have at it, go ahead. But his flattery always left me on an emotional high, gave me this self-esteem that I longed for. Once we got married, everything changed. He knew where the cracks in my armor were. And because I took that off. I was like, oh gosh, I'm with the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. I'm going to stop the curse of divorce in my family. I love being a wife. This is going to be amazing. And we didn't get married for 7 years. It took quite a while, but I can tell you, after we got married, the gaslighting, the highs and lows of, the love bombs to the breadcrumbs and then being stonewalled. It was in full force after we got married. And that continued for quite a long time.
Welcome back to Wounds to Wisdom podcast. And I want to give a shout out to Denny Caballero with Security Halt Media, who is producing our mini-series. This is all about the 29 authors that are on our book, Wounds to Wisdom, Healing Through Veteran and First Responder Narratives. Our protectors have shared their story. They have written a story, shared their story to help those protectors who are suffering in silence. So I will be interviewing each one of the 29 authors in our book. And today I have Lana Spisso. She has just become a really good friend. She's a joy to be around. And I'm so grateful that you are here to share your story, Lana. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I am happy to be here.
Well, let's dig in. Let's start out with your background, a little bit about kind of who you are, where you came from, and what led you to wanting to join the military.
Okay. So I'm from upstate New York. I'm one of 4 girls. I'm the baby in the family. I could say I was probably the feistiest one of all of us. Always a little fighter, determined, very driven, to always find solutions or get things done. I can tell you, my parents, they raised me with really great values. It was, it's really simple. It was treat people the way you want to be treated, right? And always give respect and grace. Fighting for what you fighting for what you want, and always stand your ground for yourself and others. I literally became the zero tolerance mama hen for the people that were getting bullied at school. I didn't like that at all. And then never sacrifice your values or your independence for anyone or anything. And I can tell you, down the road, I'll tell you my story that I did end up sacrificing my independence, unfortunately. But again, I also have a background in psychology and social work that really helped me own my abilities to have self-awareness and always offer compassion and grace, or compassion and empathy. I'm sorry. It's really easy if you're in a bad way or just, your mind spiraling. It's really easy to not be able to give that to others. And I think you really have to have it for yourself in order to be able to give it away freely. And then again, being resourceful, I always say I'm the most resourceful person I know because I'm not afraid to call anyone, look anything up. I will research until I can find the answer, because I know it puts other people out when you have to depend on others for that kind of stuff. And then, throughout my background work, always remembering that, there's other people always in real crisis and they need real results. They don't just need ideas. And I learned early in my career, prior to going into the military, that, if you're going to add something to a conversation or a meeting, whatever it is, don't, throw the good idea fairies out there unless they're going to be solutions that'll fix the problem. If you're going to just complain or, bring other problems, just keep your mouth shut. It doesn't work that way, And then I'll say, all of that I brought into the military, and it really, my confidence just catapulted. I was a firm but fair leader. Fair didn't always mean equal. People don't like that answer, but it is what it is. I mean, you can probably look at yourself going all the way back to your own childhood and realize that, yep, that's the way parents treat people that way or treat kids that way. My go-to line when I receive new soldiers was never mistake my kindness for a lack of discipline or respect. And it was such a great boundary setter and set the tone. And I even continued to use it when I got out of the military. And even in my coaching, I help executives with that because it's just a different world right now. It's so different out there with all the stuff going on politically, and it's hard because there's such a huge generational divide and the big gap that continues to grow in the workplace, and that needs to be closed. Um, I would say, that's I brought all that to what I do now. Um, and right now in my business that I've had for quite a long time is I help current and emerging leaders with critical action steps, aka roadmap or blueprints that promote authentic leadership so that they can achieve personal growth and professional success.
Name of your coaching company?
Yeah, it's Elite Leadership Training. It's been around quite a long time. It was my 5-year exit plan coming out of the military. I've always loved working with people. I've always had one of my superpowers is to be able to meet people where they're at and kind of see what level they can get to. And I'm just really good at um, mapping out specific steps to get there. And it removes the trial and error. I mean, I've done that when I came out of the military. I didn't have a mentor to help me with that business stuff, and I can tell you, I took the detour bypass method. It took a long time to get there, but if I can help people, um, whether they're in crisis or whether they're overwhelmed, they're just stuck, they don't know how to, they find themselves getting in the weeds with their team when they shouldn't have to. I can really make that path shorter for them to find the results to make their operation run more efficiently, to get their people to perform um, at a higher level, just stuff like that. And I absolutely love doing it. I have such great relationships with my clients, and I'm doing what I absolutely love.
Well, you see that thread going through your life, the mother hen, the protection of the kids at
Yeah.
school, going into the Army, right? Army officer. You're an Army officer, and then till you
Hmm.
came to be a leadership coach. So, and I think too,
Yep.
your confidence is very clear. You exude confidence and strength, and um, but you did hit a day. So let's tell me what you loved about your time in the Army first. Let's talk about that, and then go
Okay.
to when you hit that day, that season where your confidence, your foundation was rattled. So, what did you love about the
Yeah.
Army?
Well, yep, I can tell you, and probably almost everyone will tell you that the camaraderie is something that is really hard to achieve outside of the military. You learn mission first. You check your emotions at the door, no matter what. If you're not getting along with someone, don't have the barbecue. But when you go through the door to work, you're there to work and you're there to get things done. I can tell you, through being in your tribe, I love being with the power of our story. And I can tell you, um, the camaraderie that is developing and that I see is just honestly, it warms my heart. I immediately felt welcome with open arms. It's something that's really hard to develop because that chemistry develops with the people within, and it's just I don't know, like that. That to me was absolutely amazing. The ability to solve problems, the ability to lead people. I could see, I knew I wasn't going to have people forever. So your job is to get them ready and move them on. And you want them to be confident. You want them to, I wanted to be able to leave for a day and know that that ship was still on course. And it always was because, again, we overcomplicate leadership in life and it's not that hard. Treat people the way you want to be treated. You don't have to be the volcano. You don't have to be the passive, let them do whatever they want. They need to know they're valued, right? They need to know they're part of solving a solution. They need to have some autonomy, and they all need to know what the objectives are and what the mission is. And that, getting through that stuff was great. and building a team around that. My team would run through walls for me, and I love that. Um, I can tell you the day that literally crushed my soul. Um, I was deployed in Afghanistan. It was the morning of July 4th, and I had the night prior, I had ran into a friend of mine. His name was Danny, fellow officer, and I was running to the chow hall, getting some food before it closed, and was walking down, finding an empty table because hardly anyone was in there. And I see a guy look up. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Danny. And he looked tired because he was out on an outpost all the time. Came back for a couple days of R&R, rest and refit, to just have a couple days off, and basically sat down, caught up. I hadn't seen him in probably 8 or 9 months, and just had a conversation with him, catching up. It was great. And I left him, said I'd see him the next day because I knew he was around for a couple more days. We had some July 4th ceremonies going on, this and that, like you normally do. And that morning, I was in my office, and my unit, my unit was part of the mayor cell. We were in Kabul, at Camp Phoenix at the time. It was later changed to, I believe it changed to ISAF headquarters, where Eggers moved over. And basically, I had to do a casualty notification. And my battalion commander was giving me a name, a number, or a social security number. I pulled it up, and I'm like, this isn't right. You gave me the wrong number. Can you do that again for me? And I type it in again, and I look, and I'm like, holy, no way. Like, my throat literally dropped into my stomach, and it was Danny. And my battalion commander, he saw the look on my face, and he was like, oh shit, she has no idea. I had heard earlier that morning that someone had taken their life, but he was not the person who I would have ever guessed that this would have happened to. So I got through what I needed to get through, choking back my tears. He called me in his office, and like, he let me break down in there. And I can tell you that was like, it was hard for me because I came from a profession of specializing in crisis with suicide and PTS, and there wasn't a sign, not a single sign. And for months, I would run it through my head over and over and over, like, why didn't you just ask him, how are you doing? Why didn't I spend 5 more minutes? Why didn't the would have, should have, could have, all that kind of stuff. And I can tell you, I didn't cry for years. I literally buttoned my armor back up. I was like, no way. I can't believe I failed him. I can't believe I couldn't do something to fix this. And that haunted me for, I would say, a good 10 years of my life. In addition to that, I had actually met my former husband in the military. And, I can tell you, when I met him, he was he was something that just, lit up my eyes. Um, he, gosh, we're gonna have to fix this part right now because I'm kind of going off. Sorry about that.
Good. You're good.
So,
This is
okay.
real.
No. Oh my God, it's real. I know, but shit. So I met my former husband. I can tell you, he had charisma, confidence, and, looks that would absolutely turn heads in a room. He loved to be the center of attention. Of course, it was easy for me because I was always the behind the scenes kind of person. So I would like, hey, have at it, go ahead. But his flattery always left me on an emotional high, gave me this self-esteem that I longed for. Um, once we got married, everything changed. He knew where the cracks in my armor were. And because I took that off. I was like, oh gosh, I'm with the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. I'm going to stop the curse of divorce in my family. I love being a wife. This is going to be amazing. And we didn't get married for 7 years. It took quite a while, but I can tell you, after we got married, the gaslighting, uh, the highs and lows of, the love bombs to the breadcrumbs and then being stonewalled, it was in full force after we got married. And that continued for quite a long time. Um, I can say that was another piece that really shattered my confidence. I went from this independent, I don't need anyone to take care of me. I never had anyone take care of me. I was always financially sound. I never overspent. And I became this codependent, scared little person who didn't even want to, network and talk to people at a dinner party because I felt like I wasn't smart enough. And I felt like he needed to do it all because he was better at doing that stuff for the business. We ran the business together. And over the years, it just really chipped away at my confidence. And then one day in 2017, we were living in a different city. I didn't really have a big support system around me. And holy crap, exited stage left. I got blindsided. There was another woman who he's married to now, is what it is. But for the next 3.5 years after that, I didn't have the courage or the bravery to say, no, I'm not accepting this. I should have filed, but I didn't. I wanted my marriage to just continue and I wanted to save it. And the manipulation continued for 3.5 years. Basically I had one foot in my camp and one foot in her camp until I finally got to the point of like, what are you doing, Lana? Like, why are you giving this man your power? And I'm like, holy crap, like he doesn't care. He's already moved on with his life, and here I am. I lost my family, my extended family, who I still love. My sisters-in-law, they're amazing humans, but I lost, everything that goes around that whole family unit, and then had no support and still had him calling me just to kind of like cast that fishing line out there and start reeling it in and like hook me and then kind of let it drop. And for me, like those were false illusions of hope that he was giving me. Um, and it really kept me in a place of I froze. I was paralyzed for a long time. And I can tell you, I knew in my heart that, God gave me plenty of exit ramps to take. And he had to kind of like pull the rug out from my feet and say, hey, look, like you've got to kind of stand back and see what's going on with your life. And for the next 3.5 years, I threw myself into, every leadership development book. I had counseling, you name it. What I didn't do is I didn't just throw myself back into work because I knew if I did that, it wasn't going to help me with my business. It wasn't going to help me with my mental, emotional, or even psychological peace. I know for me, forgiveness was a huge piece of my own transformation. I was mad. I was angry. But, when you're stuck in this grief cycle, you're mad, you're angry, you're sad. And then you get back and you lose hope. And then you come back and you have hope again. It's like being stuck in a pinball machine and you have no idea where you're going to end up. And I just wanted to, I tell myself, I'm letting go, I'm letting go. I don't need to know what the final result's going to be. I need to let it go. And for me, I think my biggest testament is letting go of control because I needed to control everything. Even, part of my own childhood trauma was controlling people coming and going in my life. My parents divorced when I was 4. And, we were the stigma of the 80s. My father raised 4 girls. We had a slew of nannies in and out of the house because my dad was, left the house at 4 a.m., got home at 7. And four girls between like 2 years apart, and I have a twin sister. So there's two of us that were four. Our nannies quit left and right. We were too much to handle. So again, it's that I had that fear of abandonment, fear of, abandonment and rejection. And gosh, my former husband knew that was my biggest fear in life. And, when you make a promise to someone that you're not going to do that, and then holy shit, like my world was turned upside down. And, I mean, there's worse parts of it that I don't need to talk about. But again, I know that they were lessons that I needed to learn because I dropped my boundaries. I dropped my independence. I dropped my fight for what I want. And the biggest thing I did is I stopped listening to my own intuition. And I can tell you, I don't know what it is, but women have this keen sense of intuition. I don't know if it's a mother nurturing thing or what, but I knew something wasn't right with throughout my marriage, and I just let it go. I was his second wife, and I realized what had happened to me was his pattern. So now he's with his third wife. I hope he changes, and I hope he never does this again to anyone else, because I wouldn't even wish what happened to my worst enemy. I was literally frozen, couldn't make a decision to save my life. I could put on the mask every single day, work with my clients, and tell them exactly what they're supposed to be doing. But I couldn't even follow my own advice. And that's when I was like, you are the biggest hypocrite, Lana. Stop, stop the madness. And that's when I finally said, yep, it's time for me to do me. Step back in my power, start using my voice again, and just rebuild. And I literally did. I stripped everything from the business that no longer served me. And I really focus on the executive coaching and the team building with groups of executives. I absolutely love it. I met an amazing man a couple years, I would say well, 2.5 years ago. And I can tell you, I did not realize how easy relationships are supposed to be. I mean, he is the epitome of honor, transparency, and love as an action, not just words that someone's throwing at you. So, yeah,
Excellent.
I know that was a little bit long, but and all over the place.
No, you know what? I think this is another important angle because that the hard thing is there are people that don't behave well all over the place, right? I mean, there is, and especially in a
Yeah,
marriage, that is extra, extra deep. And I love what you're sharing
yeah,
because, the power of our story and wounds to wisdom is all about how do you get your power back after trauma, whatever that looks like, whether it's military, whether it's again betrayal in a relationship and I love what you said is that you stopped listening to your intuition. You stopped. So I'm guessing that
hmm
when you saw those red flags, you told yourself a story that protected him. Would
Oh yeah.
you,
I mean, I saw absolutely. I saw red flags right in the beginning, and I was only what, 22 or 23. I was young,
you were young.
and
Those are
I
hard lessons.
I was
Yeah.
young. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was young, and I was still I didn't even deal with my own trauma of the rejection and abandonment. I didn't realize that until, going through the middle of my divorce. So, but that betrayal and, feeling like you're just being tossed away like a piece of garbage, that's really what it felt like. And I think the hardest part for anyone that's suffering this kind of betrayal, it's like I had to unpack all of that and realize that all of it was just an illusion.
Mm.
And I truly believed it. And holy cow. And I think like, wow, I spent half my life in this fantasy world. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was some really good times. We had great vacations. We had good times. But again, it never came without a price or a cost. And, we never truly reached the level of intimacy that partners should. And I'm not talking about sexual, I'm talking about like, do you know your partner's love language? And he would always buy me these really expensive gifts. And I'm not a gift person. I could care less about gifts. And I realized later why I was getting the gifts, you know? So it's, yeah, I would never want to turn back and not have those lessons because my whole life trajectory would be completely different. I needed those life lessons and I wouldn't be where I am today because I honestly I'm living my best life. I get to do what I absolutely love. I've found an amazing tribe with you. And it's just, yeah, it's like I said, I mean, it's taken 7 years for me to even be able to talk about this without shame, without guilt, without like, oh my God, you know, you failed as a wife and it sucks, you know, but it's part of life and it's my truth and
Yeah.
it's what I went through.
It's so interesting because sometimes it takes
So,
really painful things to empower those areas where we have
oh yeah.
cracks. And that's what it sounded like happened because you're a spunky,
Yeah.
strong leader. And this was something that
Hmm.
there was a chink in your armor that this guy got into. And then now it
Oh
just
yeah.
sounds like you were able to connect the dots and just be re-empowered with more boundaries, with more understanding. Now you have this great guy.
Yeah.
Um, it's so important, I
Rob.
think, to hear
Yeah.
these
He's,
stories. Rob, okay, yes, I didn't want to
yeah.
put it out there
Oh
unless
no.
you did,
Oh no,
but
I absolutely want to put that out there. Well, you
yeah.
know what it is too is when you're going through the storm, you know, in the eye of a storm, it's so calm, right? And that's where I was, but I was scared. So I'm like, oh, there's the manhole. I'm just gonna jump down in that hole. And I clawed my way for years and years to try to get out of it. But you know,
Mm,
you've got this crazy cyclone flying around you and you know, you can see the trees right in front of you, but you can't see the damn forest. And
mm,
I literally thought, I'm like, holy crap, this is never going to end. And I can tell you, you know, I used to use God as a life preserver or a spare tire. And it wasn't until like, holy crap, the rug was pulled out that everything changed. Because when I would, you know, just try to call someone, I needed to talk to someone because the walls were closing on the house. The panic attacks were out of control. And I would call, and no one would answer. And I'm like, all right, you know what? That's a lesson. Just, you know, that's how I would talk to God. You know, I'm not a Bible thumper. I don't go to church every Sunday, but I have a very strong relationship and my faith is so strong. And I always remember you can be powerful or you can be pitiful, but you can't be both. You can't be both at the same time. You know, if if you don't have trust and faith, then you're going to be worrying all the time. I don't worry about a lot of things. I do get stressed about certain things, but I already know that there's a plan. It's going to figure itself out. And I just want people to know that, you know, it's mostly women that go through this stuff. I have met a lot of men who've gone through this. It's really about, it was never about you. I know it was never about me. It was about his insecurities. And I, once I said, time to focus on you, you know, I got back into my favorite gym. I started doing the things that I loved, exactly what I've been telling my clients to do. I got my self care plan. I got my, you know, I started eating better because I was surviving on wine and, you know, wheat thins and cheese every night. Not a great diet, but I'm saying like once you start taking care of yourself, honestly, the rest of it all really falls into place. So when you don't know what to do, you have to pour all of your energy into yourself, getting good sleep. Take a walk if you don't want to pay for the gym. You know, whatever it is that can give you that time back because you're never going to get it back. You know, you can meet a man down the road later, but figure it out. You know, put the work into yourself. I don't care how unmotivated you are. I don't care how sad you are, how long you think you're going to be stuck. You're not ever going to be stuck. Everyone is going to be okay. And regardless of what happened to you or happened to me, I took the responsibility to fix myself because that's what we have to do. No one's
Yeah.
going to do it for us, you know?
It
So,
really is
yeah,
owning it, isn't it? It's owning it. It's saying, how am I going
yeah,
to
yeah,
be empowered again? And again, I think this is a really important subject because a lot of people don't want to talk about it because, again, we've been talking about this with the other interviews too. It's the shame piece that keeps us
Yeah.
stuck. And once we can start
Yeah.
talking about whatever that trauma, whatever that looks like, whatever it looks like, it's the same thing of being able to have that courage to lean in and take that first step. And so I feel like you already
Yeah.
explained it very well, but I was going to say, if there is a woman or a man that's suffering in silence right now, what would you tell them? What would be that
Yeah.
first step that you would tell them? Muster up that courage and do this. What would that be?
Yeah, I would tell you to figure out a way to make self-care a daily habit for you. You know, for me,
Mm,
even just getting through my panic attacks was breathing when everything's out of control and people are around you and people are looking at you. The only thing that you can do is breathe. And no
mm,
one sees that. No one sees that you're having a panic attack. It's kind of like the duck on water, you know, the duck swimming nice and smooth. Underneath, the duck's doing this, like trying to go as fast as they can. And that's like in the middle of a panic attack. You look fine on the outside, but like inside, your heart's going to come through your chest. And
mm,
I can tell you, you know, I didn't believe it until I finally started doing it. And your your parasympathetic response is almost immediately. And I can tell you it's the first thing that I teach even my own clients because we all need that muscle memory for it to kick in when we are having those hard moments, because if you start spinning out of control, then you can't stop the movie that's playing in your head. And the other piece is too is, you know, find a counselor. um, you know, there's so many resources out there for people who are stuck in narcissistic relationships. Um, Also, the other thing is silence is golden. Remember that. You don't have to tell your story, you don't have to tell your side of it. Um, Focus on yourself, because I can tell you, um, gosh, it makes it almost worse because we'll always get back to the other person, and it 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 just doesn't need to be told, because if people know who you truly are, that's all that matters. Because my people, my tribe of people, never left. And he's the one that ran away because he knew he was already found out. It is what it is. So I would say, obviously, you know, where's your faith at? Look at your faith. Learn techniques to help you cope better, such as breathing, exercise, do something for yourself. The other thing that I did a lot of is, you know, when you're in stress and you can't change the outcome or you can't change what's going on, try to help someone else out. It will totally take your mind off of everything. I'm a firm believer in, you know, helping others that are struggling, because, gosh, it really does help you take your mind off all the shit sandwich that you're eating at the moment.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That is such great advice. I think that is
Oh,
so
thank
true,
you.
you know, when we can do that. And I think too, you know, you brought up a point too. I think we can end with, so we do the power of our story. That is where people come and they share their stories when they are they've kind of navigated their way out. But it really is true. The
Yep.
power of healing through storytelling is when you can change
Mm,
that narrative into something more empowering at the end. You
yeah.
know, if you talk about and you share the wound, and then you see how you can change that perspective. You can flip it, which you did. You
Yeah.
started really
Yep.
taking your strengths and empowering them, and then the wounds got less and less, and you became more and more empowered and getting your
Yeah.
power back. And that is what we try to reframe stories so that we can share the hard story and then we can reframe it
Yeah.
into something that is more empowering.
Hmm.
And so that's what I really appreciate you sharing your story, Lana, and the other authors in this book,
Yeah.
because it shows a strong pattern of people being able to reframe their very hard stories, their suffering,
Mm,
into a more
yeah.
empowered life, even more than before, right? Because you have learned all these new boundaries,
Hmm.
you've learned all these new strengths, and
Yeah.
more equipped for this world, more insight, personal insight. And so I
Hmm.
really thank you, Lana, for just having the generosity and the courage to share your story. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing really quickly?
Sure.
Oh, so I also want to say, and I briefly touched on it earlier, forgiveness. I can tell you, like, I thought I forgave. Forgiveness doesn't condone what happened. It doesn't, um, it doesn't even give them a hall pass to come back in your life. It is literally letting go of the hurt so that you can move forward. You know, I wasn't saying it was okay, but I learned to forgive because he doesn't have the capacity to even recognize or realize or even say I'm sorry for what happened. You know, it's it's something that I had to come to my own realization of truly forgiving, because I can tell you, you know, God dropped Rob in my life literally 2 days after the true forgiveness came out, and it took 5 years for me to forgive. So, I mean, it was a long time. I thought I forgave immediately, but I didn't. And it's not for them, it's for you to move on. So remember that. That is so important in moving forward, because it's not about, you know, it's not about how you feel about them. It's, can you still treat them like a normal person in public as if nothing ever happened? I could do that. I could do that. I would never make a scene if I saw him. So my spiritual maturity obviously has grown through this as well. But I just wanted to mention that forgiveness piece is really, it's so essential in being able to move forward. Because if you don't forgive, you hold on to hurt. Hurt turns into anger. Anger turns into bitterness. And bitterness turns into a hardened heart. And that's really hard to break through that armor again.
I love that. Thank you. The forgiveness is freeing, isn't it? It's freeing. And then a hard heart actually affects your
freedom.
physical body too, doesn't it? I mean, it ruins you
everything,
inside and outside. Yeah. Great points. I know there are people listening that needed to hear this today. So, Lana, thank you again for your generosity.
Thank you, Sarah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.